Master Chief has had many different characters help him save the galaxy in both the games and the book. The most instrumental being Cortana, but perhaps the most important human character to be by Chief's side is none other than Sergeant Avery Johnson, who is also a character that I regard as the best supporting character in the series to date. In this video, we're going to break down Johnson and how his character is used and portrayed, his relationship to the player, and his major importance in the lore. Let's not waste any time and get straight into this. Johnson made his first appearance in Halo CE in the game's opening cutscene on the Pillar of Autumn. We've just been introduced to Captain Keyes and Cortana, but with the ship brought up to full alert, our favourite sergeant gets the most dramatic entrance to just about any character in the series. Johnson is introduced to the player in a cutscene where he gives an epic speech to his Marines.
Man, here's where we show those split-chin, squid-head sons of bitches that they could not have picked a worse enemy than the human race. We are going to blow the hell out of those dumb bugs until we don't have anything left to shoot them with. And then we are going to strangle them with their own living guts. Am I right, Marines?
Sir, yes, sir!
Damn right I am.
Depending on the difficulty you choose to play on will determine which dialogue he says. This speech immediately tells the player a lot about his character. You can see that the man is a natural leader, with his presence bringing command and respect. He's also brimming with charisma and confidence and lots of witty lines that would become a staple for Johnson's time in the series. Perhaps the only character that could rival Johnson's wittiness is Sergeant Stacker, who wouldn't be introduced until Halo 2. It's also clear the man has lots of experience fighting the Covenant, as he considers his Marines to face the Covenant up close to be having a lucky day.
All you greenhorns who wanted to see Covenant up close, this is gonna be your lucky day.
But we can't talk about Johnson without acknowledging his inspiration. While Johnson is certainly epic, his roots are found in a 1986 sci-fi classic, that of course being James Cameron's Aliens. In that film is a character called Sergeant Apone. This character would be the direct inspiration for Johnson, from the way he looks and behaves, as well as mimicking his sense of humor and personality.
Every formation of parade. I love the call. Man, this floor is freezing. What do you want me to do? Fetch your slippers for you?
Gee, would you, sir? I'd like that.
Look into my eye. Fall in, people.
They even dress similar, with both men wearing military caps and sharing the habit of smoking big cigars. It should be clear to anyone playing Halo who has seen Aliens that these two are very much alike. Johnson's introduction is very eccentric, very outlandish, and quite a bit different to the cool and collected personality of Captain Keyes, but this is meant to inspire confidence and morale in the Marines, but also you as the player. However, in Halo CE, Johnson was not as an important character in gameplay, and while he does make several appearances on various missions, such as the Pillar of Autumn, Truth and Reconciliation, and Assault on the Control Room, he is just as expendable as the other Marines in the game. The player can even kill him if they wanted, but why on earth would you do that? Despite this, Johnson is still used as a minor plot device, conveying important information to the player. This could be regarding how to get inside a Covenant ship.
There's a gravity lift that ferries troops and supplies between the ship and the surface. That's our ticket in.
Or it could be when his Pelican is shot down, informing the player he is nearby with 7 Marines that need assistance. Another thing about Johnson in Halo CE is how he can seemingly be in multiple places at once. He somehow managed to get to Captain Keyes before Chief could warn him about going for a supposed weapons cache, which we all know was actually the flood containment facility. This could mean Johnson's multiple appearances in CE are actually meant to be different characters, or he's even more machine than Chief is, able to cross vast distances on the Halo ring in a short amount of time. But for certain, Johnson's appearance at the containment facility is canon, where himself along with Keyes and the other Marines are attacked by the flood. Even in the midst of terror, Johnson does not appear to be afraid. In fact, Johnson would be the sole survivor of this mission, with the details of his survival depicted in the chapter Breaking Quarantine in the Halo graphic novel. Johnson would return at the very end of the game to anyone who completed the game on Legendary, ending the game with some comedic relief, while still looking tough as nails as he wrestles for control of an assault rifle with an elite. But when both of them realise they are doomed, Johnson tells the elite to hug him, something the elite would be very silly to refuse. But if you're playing these games back to back, you wouldn't have to wait long until you see Johnson again, as he's one of the first human characters you'll meet as a player in Halo 2. But how exactly did Johnson survive the events of Halo CE? Well, it goes without saying the legendary ending for CE and its status as canon is dubious at best. What we know for certain though is that Johnson was one of the few human survivors of Alpha Halo, those being himself, along with pilot Sheila Pulaski, only Officer Elias Havison, and ODST Locklear. The group had heard Cortana's warning about the Pillar of Autumn's imminent destruction and fed the ring on one of, if not the last remaining Pelican on Halo. They would then link up with the Chief in his longsword, rescue Spartan Linda from her cryopod that was floating in space, and proceed to go on a galaxy-trotting adventure, first capturing a Covenant ship, returning to Reach to rescue more Spartans, and embarking to a Rebel stronghold, and finally by destroying a huge Covenant space station, as well as 500 Covenant ships, all before returning to Earth safely. If you want, the details of that adventure can be found in the book Halo First Strike. But where were we? Oh yeah, at the start of Halo 2. Halo 2 was where Johnson really becomes an important piece to the story. Despite now taking a more prominent role in the plot, Johnson, thankfully, still maintains his wit and his charm.
Adjustments to your A2 scope. Well, he's in a particularly fine mood.
As seen straight off the bat in the first game section. But also straight away, we can see a connection between the player and Johnson, as he refers to Chief as his boy.
That, or he can hide behind me. You done with my boy here, Master Guns? I don't see any training wheels.
And notice how in the next cutscene, despite Chief only saying a few words, he does talk to him like he's a friend.
You told me there wouldn't be any cameras.
And you told me you were gonna wear something nice. Folks need heroes, Chief, to give them hope. So smile, would ya? Well, we still got something to smile about.
Into the first combat section of the game, Johnson shows you where the weapons are, while also carrying the biggest gun in the room. Now, Chief could have probably have taken this from him, but seeing Johnson deploy and operate a GPMG is damn awesome. Now, he may not seem serious to some, but Johnson is 100% a no-nonsense soldier. He takes every mission seriously, and you'll learn a lot more about that when we delve into the lore later in this video. Johnson escorts Miranda, while Chief blows up a Covenant assault carrier. Now notice here, Johnson is right next to Miranda, and we're gonna see these two together quite often in Halo 2. No, there is no romantic thing going on between the two of them, but Johnson did have a huge amount of respect for Jacob Keyes, and in his passing that respect is poured over to his daughter, who was just as courageous as the late captain. There is also the added fact that Johnson knows Miranda's mother, who, if you didn't know, is Dr. Halsey, another person who Johnson has spent time with on some very important missions, early on in the Covenant War, and recently with Operation First Strike. The next few missions involve some cutscenes that would give Johnson some of his most iconic lines in the whole series, maybe even of the most iconic lines from any character in general. Once again, Johnson can raise the morale of his troops in pretty much any situation. He also leads from the front, willing to put himself in harm's way just as any of his Marines would be. Jumping ahead slightly, but perhaps one of the best but subtle elements of comedic relief in the series. Johnson here is giving some minor scolding to two Marines who appear to be panicking about the ongoing occupation of the city by the Covenant. Here comes Johnson to set them straight, reminding them that back in the day, there were no tanks, with sticks and rocks being the best tools provided. Also, how can we forget this?
Thanks for the tank. He never gets me anything.
Oh, I know what the ladies like.
Just imagine for a moment what Halo would be like without Johnson. This one character adds so much substance and style to the narrative, and in many ways grounded the game with a military, somewhat realistic feeling. In addition, Johnson reminds me of the drill sergeant from Full Metal Jacket, taking no shit and whipping his Marines into real warriors. From this point on, we won't see much of Johnson in gameplay sections, with the rest of his time in Halo 2 mostly being left to the cutscenes. Despite this, his character is still hugely important to the story. There'll be a few more quips from him along the way, such as
That's right, you mothers! Run!
and of course,
Dear Sarge, kicking ass in outer space, wish you were here.
I heard that, jackass!
even though Johnson isn't as strong or as powerful as Chief, this doesn't stop him punching way above his weight. It also doesn't stop him doing some heroic acts, such as saving Miranda just in the nick of time at Delta Halo's library.
Gotcha.
You know, your father never asked me for help either.
The index is secure.
The man is also competent enough in hand-to-hand combat to give the Arbiter some pause in a fight.
How you doing?
A reminder that Fel Vadimi is one of, if not the most skilled elite warriors in the Covenant. I mean, look at how Johnson smacks Arbiter around the face like he's just another hingehead. This is also after fighting through the flood-infested facility, in which there were very few survivors. This is the second Forerunner facility Johnson has bested, but is overrun with a flood. The man is borderline unstoppable, and while Johnson is taken prisoner, he will once again help the player, this time helping the Arbiter stop the brutes. Using the Arbiter as a distraction, Johnson steals a scarab, which he uses to broker a truce of sorts. If you think about it, the Arbiter was in no position to refuse Johnson's help. If he had done, the Arbiter would have been vaporized in an instant. He is now leading his enemy into battle. Who else other than Chief has the charisma to do the same? In fact, without Johnson, the Arbiter would never have been able to defeat Tartarus, and it's thanks to Johnson sniping away at Tartarus' energy shield that we were able to finally bring him down. Johnson, all throughout Halo 2, is a huge help to the player, first providing weapons to Chief, then a tank, and now acting as fire support for the Arbiter at a very critical moment. He also still has time for some one-liners.
Tinkerbell, don't make me.
Then where?
And thanks to the strange alliance formed at the end of Halo 2, this would set the stage for Halo 3, with the elites assisting the humans to stop truth. At this point, if you remove Johnson's character from the story, the entire plot of the original Halo trilogy starts to fall apart very quickly. At the start of Halo 3, it's Johnson who goes out to rescue Chief from the crash site. When Chief wakes up, he learns Cortana is absent, and that she stayed behind on High Charity so Chief could escape. This gives Johnson an even more important role in the story, as for much of Halo 3, Johnson will be filling in for the role that Cortana usually provides. In Halo 3, Johnson will often tell Chief where he should be going and what he should be doing as a sort of guide to the player. This is all while keeping in character with how he is portrayed in the previous two games, as he taunts the brutes as they chase him through the jungle.
Come on, you dumb apes! Want breakfast? You gotta catch it!
And even when he is captured, again, he's not afraid to make his captors angry, as we can see him once again punching an alien that is far bigger and stronger than him. He really is the toughest Marine in the UNSC. Jumping ahead slightly to the level of the storm, where Johnson is very vocal to the player over the radio, praising you and encouraging you to move forward as you take out the anti-air rafe units in the area.
That away, Chief! Target destroyed!
Now, we should all be familiar with how to take out the Scarab by now, but for new players, Johnson even gives some helpful tips to the player about taking out its legs to disable the Scarab so it can be boarded. Later on, during a lengthy cutscene on the Shadow of Intent, you could see Johnson and the Arbiter bringing some weapons from each other's factions over to their own troops. Now, my understanding of what is happening here is this is some kind of weapon familiarization exercise for humans and elites to get familiar with each other's weapons. Naturally, the only two to make an effort here are Johnson and the Arbiter, and as seen in Halo 2, both of these characters are familiar with foreign weapons and are the best to teach their troops on how to use them, just in case they have to in a combat situation. In the following mission, The Ark, Johnson once again has a lot to say to the player over comms.
That's something. Enjoy it while you can, Marines. As soon as we land, we're right back to it. Priority 1. Secure a landing zone for the commander's frigate. Keep your eyes and ears open. We need all the intel we can get. Wherever the hell we are.
And just like in the level of Storm, a lot of what are being said here are instructions and dialogue that would normally be left to Cortana. In addition, with Chief not speaking during gameplay sections, you could argue that Johnson is the voice for the player, as he acts as a relay between Chief and Miranda, as Johnson is the one that tells her what's going on with the status of the mission, and when it's safe to move on to the next stage of the operation. But in the next mission, our boy Johnson would find himself captured again. Despite being captured for the third time, Johnson is still punching his captors in the face. Who is it that never learns? Is it Johnson, or is it the Covenant? And to be honest, I think it's the Covenant, because everybody that's captured Johnson has never lived to tell the tale. You see, Tartarus is dead, the brute chieftain at the start of Halo 3 is dead, and so are all the brutes and the Prophet of Truth who captured him here on the yard. However, look at Johnson in this scene. He is badly injured, but he's still fighting. Even after being rescued by Chief, Johnson still has enough energy and cognitive ability to fly the Pelican out of the Citadel. A bit more time later, and it appears Johnson has made a full recovery from his injuries as he takes a frigate all by himself, drives across an unfinished Halo ring, and then provides sniper support with a Spartan laser in a freezing cold valley. I guess the low temperatures here is never going to be as cool as Johnson. After taking out the Flood, Chief and the Arbiter and Johnson head inside the control room. Sadly, this is where our epic hero does meet his end, but not before handing his Spartan laser to Chief so we can deal with the traitorous light bulb once and for all. It's Johnson's last gift to the player. Wait, no it's not. The last gift Johnson leaves for the player is his Warthog, which Chief and the Arbiter used to escape the Halo ring just in the nick of time. What an awesome, tough soldier Johnson was. Whether that is as a side character with epic dialogue in the first game, becoming a close friend and helper in Halo 2, or helping guide you through the length of Halo 3, Johnson was always there supporting the Chief, often during some very pivotal moments. And even if Chief wasn't there, Johnson was where he needed to be when humanity, and to a larger extent, the galaxy, needed him most. But while Johnson's story might be over, there is still much to be said about the man, as Johnson's appearance in the lore is just as interesting as it is in the games. So now I'm going to spend a bit of time talking about what Johnson got up to in some of the books, and even before his first appearance in Contact Harvest. However, before we do that, if you are enjoying the video so far, do please leave a like and leave a comment with your thoughts below on Johnson, and who is your favourite supporting character in Halo. Right, now on to the lore. Avery Johnson was born on November 23rd, 2474 in Chicago on Earth. He spent most of his childhood being raised by his aunt after his parents went through a traumatic divorce, leaving his mother unable to care for him. At age 19, Johnson joined the UNSC Marine Corps, where he excelled as a Marine. So much so that he was handpicked for the Orion Project, which was the UNSC's early attempt at creating super soldiers from esteemed warfighters within its military branches. Avery was taken to Reach, where he undertook several biological augmentations. While not as strong as the ones used later in the Spartan 2 program, the augmentations were still effective and enhanced the soldiers' muscular strength, eyesight, hearing, as well as mental improvements to the brain, allowing the operator to learn faster, as well as enhancing motor skills to improve body movements. During his time with Orion, Johnson became an advanced military sniper. However, due to the cost of running the Orion project, it was shut down in 2506, and Johnson was reassigned back to the UNSC Marines. During a mission on the planet Tribute to find and shut down insurrectionist bomb-making facilities, the mission went astray when an insurrectionist detonated a bomb inside a restaurant, killing everyone inside, as well as several Marines who went to apprehend the suspect. Johnson returned to Earth, where he found that his auntie had died of natural causes. Feeling upset, Johnson embarked on a binge drinking session throughout Chicago, often getting into fights with club bouncers. However, he was found by a UNSC recruiter and handed over to ONI Officer Gillian L. Signey. Officially, Johnson's mission was to train a militia on Harvest. However, the real mission was to investigate who was behind a slew of disappearances of commercial freighters in the Harvest system, with ONI suspecting insurrection activity. While hiding in a modified civilian vessel, the UNSC This End Up had been set up as bait for the pirates, with Sergeant Johnson and Sergeant Byrne laying in wait with vacuum-sealed suits and experimental battle rifles. However, when the boarders entered the ship, the two soldiers realised that the boarders were not insurrectionists, as ONI had thought, but were actually aliens, 4 Kigar jackals to be precise. Al Signey's orders were clear: let none escape and take a prisoner if possible. The two men neutralised 3 of the jackals, but the 4th one escaped back into the Covenant vessel. Johnson pursued the jackal into the Covenant ship, and after a short skirmish killed the jackal ship mistress. However, Johnson was knocked unconscious by an explosion, but was rescued by Sergeant Byrne and brought back to the UNSC ship, which fired an Archer missile at the Covenant ship, destroying it. This engagement means that Johnson scored the first kill against the Covenant in what would become a very long and bloody conflict, and Johnson would live through the entire war, seeing the end of the Covenant with Truth's death on the Ark. Back on Harvest, the only soldiers available to defend the planet was Johnson and a small garrison of militiamen. While the UNSC attempted a peaceful meeting with the Covenant, things went wrong when an overeager grunt fired on one of the militia soldiers, resulting in a firefight between the two factions. Johnson Johnson and Byrne, along with the survivors of the militia, were able to evacuate thousands of civilians from Harvest onto freighters and away from the Harvest system. In this engagement, Johnson would have a close call with Tartarus. However, he was able to escape thanks to the betrayal of a grunt and the incoming fire from a militia fire team. After this, in the year 2526, due to Johnson's experience fighting the Covenant on Harvest, he was asked to take part in Operation Silent Storm, a high-risk mission which would see the UNSC carry out a counter-strike against the Covenant on one of their own worlds. High-ranking members of the UNSC, such as Vice Admiral Cole and Vice Admiral Stanforth, as well as Dr. Halsey, briefed Johnson on the situation, as well as the existence of the Spartan 2 program, informing Johnson that the Spartans were only 15 and that he was the right man to lead them. However, with the caveat of not actually giving military orders to the Spartans, meaning Johnson would act as more of a guide and a teacher to the Spartans and less as a military commander. Joining the Spartans on their mission was the ODSTs of the 21st Space Assault Battalion, otherwise known as the Black Daggers. Initially, during training between the Daggers and the Spartans would always win. However, Johnson began to adjust the tactics of the ODSTs, which allowed them to coordinate effective assaults, giving the Spartans pause and making them adjust their own tactics. When the commander of the Black Daggers came up with a plan to board Covenant ships that made poor use of the Spartans, John spoke up and Johnson backed up the Spartan. This convinced the ODST commander to always consult with John before planning missions that involved Spartans. And later, during the same operation, it was Johnson who put in the recommendation to promote John to Master Chief Petty Officer, with Johnson also present to see John receive and accept the promotion. With a final piece of parting advice to John, Johnson told the Spartan the risks of leading from the front, and that if Chief were to fall, he told him how much this could have a negative effect on his troops, and that Chief should be prepared to send his own troops into any fire that he himself would go into. In part, thanks to Johnson's teachings, Operation Silent Storm would be a huge tactical victory for the UNSC, with the Covenant planet Zeus set ablaze with nuclear weapons, and a huge Covenant shipyard covering the planet as a giant ring was destroyed, along with the Covenant supercarrier that was being built there. The mission also saw the destruction of the veteran Silent Shadow team, led by Blade Master Tel Zatalai. And of course, Johnson was present on Reach when it fell, evacuating on the Pillar of Autumn and making the pivotal discovery of Halo. The rest of the story you should be well familiar with, but an interesting piece of trivia: when Johnson died in Halo 3, he did so at the grand age of 78 years old. I know the graphics in Halo 3 are starting to show their age, but Johnson aged beautifully, and while partly due to spending time in cryo, Johnson did not show any signs of slowing down with age, and he was able to survive being captured multiple times, facing down the flood, and often taking a serious beating, as well as being able to trek across a Halo ring with a Spartan laser on his shoulder. Was it the augmentation keeping Johnson going for so long? Or was it the fact that he is tough as hell and a badass Marine? Well, there we have it, my breakdown of Sergeant Johnson, who, in my opinion, is one of the best and most important characters in all of Halo, and one that no other character has been able to match in the cool and charismatic departments. And I also need to mention the actor responsible for bringing Johnson to life, and that is the brilliant David Scully. Thank you all so much for watching, and if you enjoyed this video, do please leave a like, and also leave a comment with your thoughts on Johnson. Personally, I wouldn't mind a Halo prequel set during the Human Covenant War, where we can actually play as Johnson on one of his crazy missions, but if that does happen, we need to have David Scully reprise his role once again. If you like this kind of content and want to see more like it, please do consider subscribing. But until next time, Spartans, I will see you in the next one.